Tell their friends about it. It's a move. It's a move. I don't know how else to describe it.
Something I noticed today from you being up here, it sounded like to me that today was your first time doing communion in this space.
It was.
How did you guys get into that place where you guys could offer that?
Well, I thought we were missing something for some time. And I talked with him about intention, where you break the bread and put it in a cup. He said, I said, JD, I think that'll be foreign to him. And I said, you're probably right. So I let it go for a while. But it kept occurring in my spirit that, this is part of what we are, and that's a special service that we're not offering. That's okay. 4 Sundays we're going to do it. And so the day was 4 Sundays. And so we did it. And I wasn't certain how it was going to turn out. Sometimes you feel led to do something and you put it out there and you see who responds to it. I think 98% of the people here responded.
Absolutely.
And I was overwhelmed. But I kind of hoped for that, so I had my wife in the back with additional supplies in case she ran out. And it worked. It worked. I signaled to her and she was up. And so, yeah, that you could call that a risk, because we don't know the background of these young people. Some of them have no church background. Others from Pentecostal, Church of God, Baptist, Full Gospel. All of those things are in the mix. And every church does it differently, except the United Methodist Church. And so I brought a little of that, but I wasn't going to force that on them. And I offered them an opportunity to be at the table, the Lord's table. That's all. And, we believe that Christ meets you there. And so I put that out there. And they responded. Yeah.
Can you tell me the story one more time? I just want to make sure I have a couple of takes of that.
Okay.
That's the long part. Let me say one thing about how we grew the Bible study real quick.
Okay, yeah.
One of the things that we also did in seeking to grow and expand in Bible study, as JD already mentioned, we started with about 9 to 12 students for that first Bible study. And by the end of that first semester, it was about 40 to 45 on a regular basis. And then since, as he's already mentioned, now we can see up to over 100 students in Bible study. And that was the initiating piece. That was the catalyst to this entire experience. One of the big things we wanted to focus on was how we marketed Bible study in general. And so we started with the name Drop Zone. And after prayerful consideration and conversation with Pastor JD, we looked at skydiving and how that first jump sometimes is the scariest jump. And they have what's called a tandem jump, which is something that you don't do alone. And when I first came into the door, JD had a slogan around all the windows and the doors that said, "Never walk alone." And I think one of the big things we wanted to create is an atmosphere where people felt comfortable not being alone in their new journey, learning how to have a relationship with Christ and grow. And creating that environment was very healthy. But then also we looked at communication, how that was so critical to their coming here and being a part of what we do. So we did a text message list called remind101.com. And that enabled us to send out text messages to people's phones with reminders, and they became a subscriber to that list, as well as encouraging people to maximize social networks and be a promoter of something they believed in. And once we did that, we just saw just an amazing increase, not only in people, but in the overall health of the ministry as it pertained to seeing people connected and believing in what we were doing moving forward.
Yeah. And one of the increments of that is that he teaches a lesson the first half, and he passes the basket around so that people can ask questions anonymously, and then the group can discuss those things. Because when you can ask a question anonymously, then you can really be real about the question that you want answered. If you have to put your name to it, then there's some baggage to that. But it frees people, and it allows them to hear others talk about possible solutions to the question that they have. Now Vernon will answer some of the questions, but others he allows the group to deal with, because we talk about not being the answer man, but it's a healthy discussion. It's a healthy discussion, and I think the young people appreciate that. I do.
Okay.
So you want to hear that story again?
Yep.
Okay.
I'd like for you to share the story, and then I'd like Vernon to share the story in his perspective.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna tell a difference. I came to Pace Ministry in February 2009, and when I came, there were 6 students involved in ministry, and I worked with those 6 students, and I encouraged them to grow and to invite their friends to be a part of what we were trying to do here on campus. They worked with me for a year, and then they told me that they could play music, and they became the band, and they played for a semester, and then it was graduation time. They left, and here I was stuck with no musicians, no band, or anything, and I was praying, God, what are we going to do? How can we make this an integral part of the community? What can we do to be a magnet, a source of hope and light to the student community? And I began to get these images of possibilities. And I just kept praying. I said, well, I need a face. I need a young face, a young adult who is grounded in God, who is spiritual, who has that way of being an attraction for them. I was praying for this. And I finished praying in October 2010. And there was a knock on the door very shortly after. And I said, God, you're showing off now. And I went to the door, and this young man was standing there. He said, hey, my name is Vernon Gordon. And I spoke with Dr. Bledsoe on campus, and he told me about you being here, that there might be a possibility of me doing a field placement here. I said, wow. Dude, you don't know. I just been praying about this. We went upstairs, and we started talking about possibilities. And the rest, is just God moving and us being obedient to the best of our ability. Been some bumps in the road, but it's been a good bump. It's been a growth. It's been a steady growth, a steady movement of God. Musicians, singers, dancers, ushers, a hospitable environment, hospitable people welcoming others to it. And it's just good. And one other thing I might add, I believe that it's the only worship service on campus that's integrated. Amen.
All right, Vernon?
What part of 2010 was it?
The fall.
Good. Okay. In 2006, I came to VCU as an undergraduate student. And, I actually was familiarized with Pace Center because I was a part of the Black Awakening Choir. But I had left sometime before, a couple years before, and went back to finish my education at Old Dominion University. So then upon coming back to Richmond to be a seminary student at Virginia Union Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology, I needed a field placement. I needed a place that I could be a part of ministry, to learn, to watch. And I remember this place called Pace Center that was on campus when I was younger. And so I came around the door, and actually I had called the number that I saw up front, but it was to another ministry that was meeting here. No one answered. I remember coming by once before and no one answered the door. And so I said, let me give this one more shot. And I actually said to myself, if they don't pick up this time, or if they don't answer the door, then I'll just go somewhere else. And when I went to the door this particular time, fall of 2010, Pastor JD came to the door, and I began to share with him my desire to do some ministry endeavors, and that I was in seminary at the time looking for a field placement. And he said, you're not going to believe that I was just praying for someone like you. And he said, come on in. And we went upstairs and we began to dialogue about the possibilities of what Pace Center could do, not just for this campus, but for this community. And he, shortly thereafter, gave me the opportunity to start a Bible study on campus, which has since grown into an amazing experience, bringing in sometimes over 100 people or more. And in addition to that, we launched a worship service that has continued to be a blessing to this campus and community, that is now exceeding numbers that were far more than we ever expected. And but it all started with a knock, a prayer, and an answer. And just grateful that God has given us the opportunity to work together to bring ministry to the Richmond area.
Very good. JD, why a young person? Why were you praying for that specifically?
Well, I'm beginning to believe that campus ministry is a young person's job. Simply because there's some things that the way I share things, young people may not relate to it openly. My experience, my education might be causing some of them to reach and to not feel comfortable in interaction with me. Others are okay with it, but I wanted it to be more of a peer-to-peer type possibility as much as possible. You know, the thing is, I want a young face, but I also want experience around. We want to be able to communicate with the folks, but we also want to challenge them. We want to be able to encourage them, but we also want to guide them. And so it's a mixed blessing. But I wanted a face, a younger face, to be the face of the ministry. I mean, sometimes I have a granddaughter who goes to school here, okay? And when she comes to worship, she said, "Granddad, don't tell anybody that I'm your granddaughter, okay?" and I respect that, I honor that. But it also tells me that she's uncomfortable coming to worship with her grandfather, with all of her peers. Now, if this is a local church, and I was a pastor there, and it would sit away from campus, and you'd have all these different intergenerational age groups, I don't think it'd be the same problem. That's my opinion. Okay.
Cool. And can I get you to share this story one more time, but in 45 seconds?
45 seconds, okay.
Is that possible?
All right, ready?
Yep.
All right. In the fall of 2010, I was at a point in ministry where I was hoping to do something different. So I was praying and asking God to send a young person, who could be the face of this ministry. Someone whom I could trust and could mentor and could possibly leave this ministry in their control. I don't have full control of that, but that's a possibility. So I was praying. And after I finished praying, there was a knock on the door. And that knock, I came down and I said, "God, you're showing off," because there was Vernon Gordon. And he entered the door, and we started from there. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Is that 45 seconds?
It was under 45 seconds.
Okay.